do we have Blair McGuff, I think. Blair, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
And what's the right pronunciation?
McGew, but you can say
I wasn't even close. McGew.
No, but that's okay.
I like that. All right. Greg Miller, are you there, Mr. Miller?
I am.
Okay, you're going to be second. Oksana Baziak, are you there?
Here.
Wonderful. You're going to be third. Erica Broad. Erica, are you there? Let me go into panel 4 here. David Barrett, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're going to be fourth in this panel. And Julien Poirier, are you here?
I am.
Okay, we'll put you fifth in this panel, okay? And Erica Broad, if you call in, just send the clerk a note and we'll add you to the panel. But I will turn it over to Mr. McGeough. I hope I got it right this time. The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Your Worship. Good afternoon to all councillors and all City of Calgary staff who are listening in. I guess I'm here for the Renfrew Party. I as well live in Renfrew, but I would certainly like to thank everyone for their time and attention to allow me to raise a minor amendment I would like to put forth to the proposed North Hill Communities LAP. Just to also speak to the communication, I don't doubt that folks tried to put their best foot forward in communicating this plan, so I'm not disputing what people did. I can only speak for myself. I found out about this when I think I'm one of the 50 people who ended up on one of the door knockers, who I almost didn't answer the door because I thought it's COVID and I shouldn't be answering the door, but I decided to and found out about this. And I thought all the discussion about any plans was about the Green Line itself, which I support, and I feel like is in very good hands. So I feel kind of stupid that I missed this, but, here we are. So I've moved to Renfrew in 2014 with my family. It's a great inner city community, as you heard. Obviously, folks are engaged, which is great to see. And in light of the 3 days of comments on the guidebook, I'm sure everyone is extremely interested and keyed in on understanding how this approval process will go, how concerns are dealt with respect to this particular LAP. My concern with the LAP is the designation of 6th Street Northeast as a neighborhood connector. There are maps that are presented in the North Hill Communities LAP, and I would encourage everybody to go take a peek at that. Obviously, look at those maps and understand them. It obviously, as you've heard already, would mean up to 6 stories could be built along those neighborhood connector streets and along 6th Street Northeast. I'm extremely familiar with 6th Street Northeast. It's very close to me. It's not a high-traffic street. It has very much a lower profile than any of the other neighborhood connector streets that have been designated as such in the plan. And the homes are all single homes or duplexes, apart from there's the church. It's a dead-end street at one end as well. And there is a bus that does travel along there, but it travels for 4-block stretch, only one way, northbound, 25 minutes at rush hour, every 25 minutes at rush hour, and 45 minutes during weekdays. So, and there's not a lot of pedestrian traffic on it either. It's very much different than the other roads that I look at when I look at the map that's been presented inside the local area plan. For context, 14th Street Northwest, for instance, is marked as a neighborhood connector, and it's not apples to apples. It's not even fruit to fruit. It's very different. And it makes me even more certain that the street itself was wrongly designated as the only conclusion I come to when I look at it. The proposed, 6-story development maximum that would apply to it is certainly out of step with the nature of the street itself and the particular part of the area, the neighborhood at large, except, of course, with the part of it that would be on 16th Avenue, which, no one, I think, is going to argue that, I think 16th Avenue should be absolutely developed, and we all hope it will be. The guidebook does say, at page 28, that at all scales, redevelopment should consider existing context, parcel layout, building massing, and landscaping to sensitively integrate into the community. So the 6-story development, and as you've heard from other folks, that would have an adverse impact in a number of ways. We don't need to, you all have heard and understand what those all could be. But my view is that the street is much more suited to and should more appropriately be classified as neighborhood local in accordance with even the guidance that is provided in the guidebook itself. The guidebook itself states that a local area plan should identify neighborhood local areas of a community with the following characteristics. Provides 3 of them, and 2 of them are low to moderate transit service, which I think tick that box, and low pedestrian activity along public streets, which tick that box as well. And I do also echo the fact that it's a bit strange to be talking about this before the plan itself was in place. I don't like the timing of it, but here we are. But multifamily home development can still happen if this is a neighborhood local area. And we look forward, and as you've heard other people look forward to and welcome that development. The 6-story piece it won't be, I don't know the right way to put it. It just doesn't really work with the rest of the plan itself, and it's mislabeled as such.
Sir, you're just at time, so I'll ask you to wrap up, please.
Sure. So as a result, I'm asking for a minor amendment to the proposed North Hill LAP to reclassify 6th Street Northeast from a neighborhood connector to a neighborhood local. That's map 3 on page 29 and map 4 on page 31.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Let's go to Mr. Miller, please. Are you there, sir?
I am.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Greg Miller, and I'm here as a representative of the Highland Park Community Association Development Committee. I'd ask you please to enter our letter of support for the North Hill Community Local Area Plan into the public record. On behalf of the Community Association, I have some specific comments on the North Hill Plan. I also have some personal thoughts strictly as a Calgarian. The HPCA is generally supportive of the North Hill Plan and the guidebook that it's built on. Personally, I volunteered for 2 years to provide input to both, and I want to offer many thanks to all the citizen volunteers who contributed their time and energy to these plans. I would also like to thank the city team for their professionalism, respect, and responsiveness. Highland Park has been without a redevelopment plan for some 50 years, and we believe the North Hill Plan aligns with our vision for the community. This includes focusing residential development together with moderate retail and commercial development radiating out from Centre Street and 40th Avenue. We welcome improved connectivity with Greenview Industrial. We are happy that the plan recognizes the Green Line as a foundation upon which our community will be renewed, in particular around the 40th Avenue station. Some residents in our community have expressed concerns on the details of the built form in specific land use applications, including RCG or row housing. To our understanding, neither the guidebook nor the North Hill Plan will change this, as this is dealt with during the land use and the development permit process. We do agree with others that linking UFCs to land use will help clear this up. As a board, however, we have 2 major concerns with the North Hill Plan. The first is the lack of a refresh schedule. Early in the North Hill discussion, a trade-off between the larger scale of the plan in return for more frequent updates was implied, yet this hasn't been delivered. Council should create a mechanism to ensure all local area plans are evergreened on a regular basis. We simply can't wait another 50 years for a refresh plan. Our second concern is the lack of recognition for the Highland Valley, the one-time golf course. Historical maps and current imagery show that the valley is a green space and serves as an important water connector from Nose Hill and Confederation Creek to Nose Creek further east. Unfortunately, the maps in the North Hill Plan repeatedly depict the valley as a developed or paved area. This is a mistake. We know the landowner is suing the city for $113 million, and we can appreciate the complications this must create. But by not factually depicting the valley in the North Hill Plan as it truly is, we believe the city is creating confusion and exposing itself to more risk. We urge the city to revise the maps in the North Hill Plan and to represent the Highland Valley as the green space and water connector that it is. So yes, the plan has its shortcomings. However, every week our community deals with development pressures and applications in absence of a plan. We've waited long enough, and frankly, we've been promised a plan. So on behalf of the Highland Park Community Association, I ask Council to support and approve the guidebook in the North Hill Plan. Now, I'd like to speak strictly on a personal note. My bias is clear. However, like many Calgarians, I believe rejecting the guidebook and continuing low-density sprawl on the city's edge will only drive up the costs of the city. I believe we must once and for all enable our municipal development plan, which was informed by consultation with thousands of Calgarians, and its policy of balanced growth between developed and new communities. Not only will this deliver a more fiscally responsible city, I believe it is key to offering the diverse housing, transportation, and social choices that will secure our city's prosperous future. I would also like to acknowledge and commend every member of the public who has had the courage to put their name and their views on the public record here before Council. Whether you're for or against or otherwise towards the guidebook and the North Hill Plan, your opinion is authentic and accountable, and it's how we build better policy. I believe legitimate, thoughtful concerns over the guidebook and the North Hill Plan, even within my own community, deserve an open and factual conversation to inform and build better plans. So I must say I was extremely disappointed that a sitting councillor and mayoral candidate who has professed a desire for transparency told Calgarians to get their facts on the guidebook from an anonymous website run by an unknown, unaccountable special interest group. A group that can afford front-page ads, won't reveal its funding, and doesn't respond to repeated emails. Calling for transparency while directing the public to unknown, unaccountable sources isn't just unhelpful, it's hypocritical. Calgarians and the factual discussions we need around our communities and our future deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Baziak, are you there?
Here.
All yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Oksana Bazouk, and I'm a resident of Renfrew. I would like to start off by thanking Catherine Parsons and her counterpart for petitioning the neighborhood of Renfrew a couple of weeks ago, as I was unaware of the proposal for 6-story buildings on connector roads in Renfrew. I've lived in Renfrew since 2011. I now live next to a recently built backyard suite. When someone is on the balcony of that unit, they are able to look directly into my living room and my backyard. I can only imagine how much worse the proposed invasion of privacy would be with 6 stories of balconies, and how difficult it will be to sell my home when it is time to move on. I wish I had known about this process of public hearing several years ago when the rezoning of Renfrew was proposed and approved for backyard suites. I've also heard some comments over the last couple of days along the lines of no one's building a 6-story building tomorrow, and the statement doesn't give me any comfort. In my experience, the development application for the backyard suite beside me was submitted just after Council approved the rezoning and before the policy to guide discretion for secondary suites and backyard suites was even available to the public. To summarize, I am opposed to 6-story buildings on the residential streets of Renfrew and agree with the comments of opposition the speakers before me made. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts today.
Well, thank you, Ms. Baziak. Thank you for being here and for sharing your thoughts. Let's go over to Mr. Barrett now. Are you there, sir?
I sure am.
Please go ahead.
Hello again, Your Worship and members of Council. Am I ever glad that we've moved past that guidebook deliberations and are now going through the on-the-ground application of the guidebook, specifically the North Hill Communities Local Area Plan. I am speaking to you this time as the president of, you guessed it, the Renfrew Community Association. Surprise, surprise. As you are likely aware, the RCA has been actively engaged in the North Hill Plan since the inception of the North Hill Communities Working Group. Our delegate to the working group, the extremely intelligent Nathan Harlech, along with the planning committee, has been actively involved and engaged in this project and have devoted extensive hours over multiple years to developing and refining the North Hill Plan. As a community that has gone without a local area plan for 40 years, we are long overdue for a process that helps to guide growth in our community. It is the feeling of the RCA that broad incremental density should have been approved across the city decades ago. However, this is hindsight. In our supplied letter to Council, we outline a few additional suggestions for potential improvements to the plan, and I would like to focus on those. A major crux of our letter is focused on the promised infrastructure investments that are summarized in Chapter 3 and Appendix A of the document. With a proposed increase in density in Renfrew, there needs to be a commitment from Council to fund these improvements. This includes through Main Street, the Main Streets Initiative along the traffic sewer that is Edmonton Trail, investment in recreation facilities in the North Hill Plan communities, including the Renfrew Aquatic Centre, rinks, ball fields, and multimodal transportation investments, including better non-vehicle infrastructure and proposed neighborhood connector routes, as identified in the plan through the Unite the Heights initiative. This infrastructure should be focused within the North Hill communities where the greatest density is proposed, not those which will see limited to no densification as a result of this plan. This also includes moving forward with other major infrastructure projects that are the cornerstone to this initiative, including the Green Line. Unfortunately, you had an opportunity to show your support for inner-city investment with John Carlo's Midfield Heights motion yesterday, looking to explore if we can improve the streetscape on the south side of 16th across from the proposed Midfield Heights development. Your decision not to approve this yesterday is a shining example of what drives skepticism in our community around the North Hill Plan. If you are unwilling to support the investment identified in the North Hill Plan, it is bound to fail. We are also concerned about the loss of urban canopy and urge Council to actually enforce the bylaws and tree planting requirements that are currently in place. We would suggest that Council strengthen the wording around tree planting to help make our community more environmentally friendly and welcoming. Ultimately, we acknowledge that this plan has the potential to do many things for and to our community. We acknowledge and heard the concerns from community members, many of whom are calling in today, about this plan. I would like to clarify that we have advertised, promoted, and encouraged our community members to get engaged through the city engagement process via a variety of mediums over the past 2+ years. In addition, we had the city host an open house at our CA building, and roadside bright signs were placed at multiple spots in the community. We believe that we have done what we, in our limited capacity as a volunteer-run community organization, can do to inform and encourage the engagement of residents in this process. To conclude, we are extremely grateful for all of the efforts of city staff that have not gone unnoticed and that have been put into this challenging project. They've been professional, responsive, and enthusiastic throughout the back and forth. Thank you for that. We hope that the final few suggestions and comments will also be received in the same manner and incorporated into this or future iterations of the document. Thank you for helping us to promote a welcoming Renfrew for folks of all demographics, both current and future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett, and thank you for your service to your community as well. Julian Poirier, are you there?
I am, and I have a presentation.
All right, we'll wait until that comes up before we start the clock, okay?
Okay.
And it is up. Please go ahead, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. My name is Julian Poirier, and I'm here on behalf of the Tuxedo Park Community Association. There are many items today that we could discuss with regard to the local area plan, but with my time, I will focus on a couple of items related to Tuxedo Park itself. The park is located as a hub of our community, and we find this recognized in the local area plan. It has a great history as the northern terminus of the streetcar line, a park that created it as a gathering place for our community, and our community association was established early on with one of our first operating committees in 1948 established to build a community rink. The North Hill Area Redevelopment Plan highlights the park in Section 3, highlights the need for the park to continue to be a place to congregate and be active, and the need to renew and adapt the park to supporting growth. Next slide. And this large open space in our community has been also a focal point for supporting growth, supporting densification well beyond the missing middle that has been one of the key topics of discussion these past few days and through successive planning engagements. We have seen the Green Line, the Main Streets, the North Hill LA local area plan over the past 5 years, and these successive planning sessions always talk about the potential of the park as a focal point. And every time it is revisited in every new engagement, we are presented with the concept of more massing and greater densification. This area is a demonstration is currently a demonstration of the missing middle, with our community population outpacing the growth of the city in the past 5 years. We're seeing more kids in our parks. We're seeing more people out on the streets. Yet the community continues to see items raised in the North Hill ARP from 2000 and the successive engagements left unresolved. And the frustration, next slide please. The frustration of successive engagements with the only thing changing in zoning can best be exemplified with how the Tuxedo Park is singled out in Section 3 of the local area plan as a site for reinvigoration. We continue to see content that doesn't match the reality on the ground. The image of a community building to coincide with the Green Line station, as used on page 57 of the local area plan, shows it being located below the high board mark of the dry pond currently under design for the park. Over 2/3 of our park, Tuxedo Park, is being converted to dry pond to help with stormwater management. This dry pond has been in plans for over 10 years, yet, and we've raised this point several times, yet we continue to see that the image is not updated. And this is affecting a major part of the city-owned land in our community. Whereas the local area plan has seen much engagement, the changes to the park due to dry pond has not. Even when we pushed on how the park will function after construction, these discussions are only, all right, next slide please, are only beginning after design is 60% complete. They're only beginning after design is 60% complete. Slide 5. Slide 5, please. 3 months after being pressed what is possible with how the city units are being engaged on the process, it's only beginning after the business case has been completed and design has been squared away. This park has seen a rebirth even through the COVID pandemic. The ice rink was our little secret that attracted people at all times of the day to activate the park. Our playground is modest, but without active elementary schools nearby, or without jaywalking across 4 lanes of traffic, it is still one of the few sources of activity in the park. Our community association is engaged with the community in this void, and we continue to reiterate that a park that is with both active and passive elements is key, and is the minimal asset that we have right now needs to remain. Slide. Okay. With respect to engagement, we need more than Lego blocks of paper. We need minimum supporting commitments for complete communities, and that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that we need development to pay for everything. But at the very least, city actions such as sidewalks and such as clear crossing facilities and park activation should be at the very minimum. When a document comes out with a factual discrepancy such as the Tuxedo Park Station, even after raised often and early, maybe engagement isn't working as well as it should. Yet elsewhere, we are being told that this is city land, that the business case doesn't support keeping these amenities, and even if we suspect the true replacement of the land was never considered on these amenities, it's unfortunate. Simple goals and statements such as shown from the City of Edmonton that work with these dry pond integrations should be integrated within the infrastructure process for the city as part of the local area plan deliverables.
Okay, Mr. Poirier, you're just at time, so I'll ask you to wrap up, but this is super interesting. Please go ahead.
So I will ask that the park can support development, but the massing needs to be contextual to the neighborhood, and the park needs to support it through its amenities. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That takes us to the end of this panel. I do have Councillor Farrell up. I suspect, Mr. Poirier, she's going to talk to you about what if she doesn't talk to you about, I will talk to you about. Councillor Farrell?
Thank you for bringing this up. Yes, the Parks and Water Services are working on the storm pond design right now, and Parks is charged with making it more of an amenity. So they recognize that this is taking away some of the active space in the community. It is something that the community has been begging for many years because of repeated overland flooding. And so we were able to get the funding for the water, for the drainage work. But the parks has now been brought on to ensure that it's more of amenity. So yes, the image isn't up to date, but the result will be much nicer than what's in the document. But the details are just not there yet because the funding just became available. Does that make sense to you? Is that information that you have?
That the information that we have, the issue that we have had is that obviously the funding is there for the stormwater management, and we support that. We know that we can't have, 5 floods in the past 10 years. Obviously, the system is not adequate for even supporting growth. But what we do recognize here is that the funding is there for the stormwater. We question if the funding is there for the amenities, and that is obviously a political question and also related to the local area plan as one of the areas of target areas.
It is. I'll assure you that. All of this is new money that was just provided by the stimulus funding, but Parks is aware of that this needs to be not just a regular dry pond, but an amenity for the community. So we're working on that very closely, and the images might not be up to date, but the result will be better than those images.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
I can get
Councillor.
some clarity from administration when we get to the questions as well.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Farrell. That's almost exactly what I was going to say. And if no one's explained it to you, Mr. Poirier, the reason for the timeline urgency is precisely as Councillor Farrell said, which is the provincial government put forth some stimulus funding for COVID recovery. But they also put a timeline on it that it must be spent in the 21 calendar year, and that was a high priority project. But your description of what you're seeing is something that sadly we see a lot, which is kind of a bit of siloing between different city departments. But the good news is the mayor and the city and the local area councillor are very good at breaking those silos. So we'll make sure that happens and we don't have a right-hand, left-hand problem here. So I really appreciate you raising that with us.
And just to confirm, the silos have been broken. We're now all working together.
I'm glad to hear it, and I hope Mr. Poirier is as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right. Let me try and build my next panel here, our next panel here. Marie Semenick Evans, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, you're going to be first on the next panel. Christopher Stiff, are you there? All right. How about Deb Gustafson?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're going to be second. How about Nathan Harlock? I think I'd know how to say that. Are you there, Nathan?
I am.
All right, you're going to be third. Cami Laird, are you there?
I'm here.
You're going to be fourth. And Isabel Yankovic, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And you're going to be fifth, Isabel, okay? All right, so Ms. Semenick Evans, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Marie Semenick Evans, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm speaking in support of the Crescent Heights Community Association to withdraw from the North Hills Community Local Area Plan unless amendments are made that will change the plan to meet the interests and needs of our community. First, I'd like to speak to the building scale and development of our Main Street. One of those core ideas included in the North Hills Community Plan is to facilitate the continued development of Center Street North, Edmonton Trail, 60th Avenue.
Excuse me, Ms. Semenick Evans. I'm not sure if that's your puppy or someone else's puppy. If it's someone else's puppy, could you please hit mute? And if it's yours, Ms. Semenick Evans, you know what to do. I just want to make sure we can hear you.
She has been quiet for 3 days and somebody just came to my door.
Of course.
I'm so sorry.
Of course that's how it's going to happen. But that's all right. Just we can hear you. Keep going.
Okay, I'm going to send this person away quickly because she'll keep arguing.
You know what? Why don't I just jump to the next person so you can exhale and come back to us. Is that okay?
Thank you.
We'll start you again. All right, so let's go to Deb Gustafson, please. Are you there?
I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and City Councilors. My name is Deb Gustafson. My husband and I live in Crescent Heights in the 1400 block of 1A Street Northwest, where we built a new home just 9 years ago. We worked directly with City Development Department, who were strict in enforcing building height, contextual alignment, and lot coverage, all things we complied with. Today, I'd like to speak to you specifically about the 1400 block of 1A Street and 1st Street Northwest. Both streets are completely residential, and there is no back alley between 1A Street and 1st Street. All houses on 1A Street are 1 and 2 stories. Well, here's the problem. In the plan, even though Map 3 shows 1st Street as urban form neighborhood local, Map 4 dictates the 6-story low building scale for it. This does not align with what the Guide for Great Communities states, and I quote, "Neighborhood local areas support a range of low-density housing forms when the applied scale is 3 stories or below, limited scale. Why has the local area plan chosen to disregard that for 1st Street?" Based on the diagrams in the guidebook, building structures of low scale cover most of a lot and include street wall commercial on the lower floors. This means that the 1 and 2-story houses on the east side of 1A Street will have a 6-story street wall at the back property line, roughly 30 feet from the backs of our homes. Going from 1 and 2 stories up to 6 stories without even a back alley does not align with page 82 of the guidebook in the section entitled Scale Transition. Here's a quote from that. "When adjacent parcels have different scale modifiers, development in these areas should be designed respecting the neighborhood context. This includes considering its existing site context, parcel layout, building massing, and landscaping in the design of the development." I don't think placing a 6-story wall at the back of the property line of houses on 1A Street shows any respect for neighborhood context. It wouldn't even allow any sunshine on the vegetation in our small backyards. In terms of proximity to the 16th Avenue and Center Street Transit Station, even Section 2.8 of the local area plan states, and I quote, "Building scales gradually decrease away from the transit station." Again, transitioning from 6 stories to 1 and 2 stories with roughly just 30 feet between is not gradual. A smaller related point is that designating the west side of 1st Street to a scale that is partially commercial does not align with other policies in the guidebook. For example, the policy to have commercial parking and loading areas from the back lane. Not possible since there is no back lane. Given all these points, the 1400 block of 1st Street should be no more than 3 stories high. It should be scale designated as limited, up to 3 stories, and it should certainly not be scale low, up to 6 stories. I do understand that this proposed bylaw does not change zoning immediately, but since it contains maps with specific residential streets designated as specific building scales, one has to ask why this specificity is necessary as a part of a bylaw. Seemingly, it has been done to allow rezoning requests to be rubber-stamped without community association involvement and adjacent resident input or objection. The fact that adjacent homeowners affected by these street-specific bylaw changes have not been notified or consulted is upsetting. We feel betrayed by the city, who we worked so hard with to ensure the house we built met all the building height, contextual alignment, and lot coverage requirements. The North Hill Plan completely ignores these factors for the 1400 block of 1A Street and 1st Street Northwest. The problem with the guidebook is that it doesn't require the plan to address a parcel scale. Not to. It only states it should consider leaving it as something that can easily be disregarded. In closing, a lot of what the Renfrew people spoke about really resonated with me, and I just wanted to mention that. We agree with our community association's request that Crescent Heights be removed from the North Hill Community's local area plan until further changes and improvements can be made. Improvements should include input of those directly affected by building scale designations for a street. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. Ms. Semenuk Evans, how are we doing over there?
We're doing fine. Thank you for your patience. The reinforcements came
No
home.
problem at all. We're happy you're here. So please go ahead.
I am speaking in support of the Crescent Heights Community Association to withdraw from the North Hills Community Local Area Plan unless amendments are made that will change the plan to meet the interests and needs of our community. First, I'd like to speak to building scale and the development of our main streets. One of the core ideas included in the North Hills Community Plan is to facilitate the continued development of Center Street North, Edmonton Trail North, 16th Avenue, and 14th Street Northwest into vibrant mixed-use main streets. The revitalization of Center Street and the Main Streets project have been a long time coming for residents of Crescent Heights, for our commercial building owners, and for our businesses. However, the North Hills Community Plan does not go far enough to encourage and ensure development on our main streets because, yes, it also does allow for the same building scale of 6 stories to occur in the middle of our residential blocks in Crescent Heights. Without any controls, developers can and will choose to develop their 6-story buildings on sites in the interior of our community before the main streets. It's often easier, cheaper, and for many builders more desirable for residential builds. This can and will hinder progress to develop and revitalize our main streets. Imagine, we could see 6-story buildings developed in the middle of our residential blocks while our main streets remain undeveloped at 1 to 2 stories. This is not good planning. This is not about rejecting density. This is about building our neighborhood in a mindful, progressive manner and ensuring our main streets get developed first. We would ask that the plan be amended to focus low-scale building of up to 6 stories to the main connector corridors within Crescent Heights to ensure that Center Street is revitalized, Edmonton Trail and 16th Avenue are developed, and the city's investment in the Green Line infrastructure is maximized. The next item I'd like to speak to is the planned 9th Avenue station and the TSA radius that is indicated around it. Last spring, we were informed by the Green Line project that there would not be a TOD attached to the 9th Avenue station and that it would be recognized and treated as a community station. In their support of the Green Line, the previous Community Association Board reaffirmed this in their letter to Council that the 9th Avenue station area development must align itself in the Center Street corridor and not extend east or west into adjacent low-density residential. The North Hills plan does refer to the 9th Avenue station as a community station, but it still shows a radius of 600 meters around it and identifies it as a transit station area. That is the same size radius shown around the 16th Avenue station, which is designated an urban station, TSA. We have been told not to pay attention to the map with the TSA radius and to focus on the building scale map because that radius is not really that relevant. That the radius merely indicates a walking distance. Well, not relevant. What about in future situations where we might be excluded or negatively impacted because of that TSA? The concept of the single detached policy amendment that was referred to earlier in the session is a perfect example of where a majority of Crescent Heights could be excluded because of the designation of that TSA, because of that 600-meter radius around our community station. If that 600-meter radius designation are not relevant and do not matter, then why not remove it? Because it matters to us, the residents of Crescent Heights. We would request that it be amended in the North Hills plan to remove the designation of the 9th Avenue Community Station as a transit area, station area, and the 600-meter radius that goes along with it. The last issue that I'd like to speak to is the need to revisit the North Hills Community Plan to allow for amendments based on future learning. The North Hills Plan is the first LAP that has been developed in conjunction with the new guidebook for great communities. It is anticipated that the local area planning process will learn and evolve as administration develops additional local area plans. As the pioneers of this process, we would like to also benefit from that learning. We would request that Council instruct administration to return to Council within 3 years with any recommended amendments to the North Hill Plan to align with learning from subsequent local area plans or additional community input. We need to build and grow our community in a thoughtful and mindful manner for now and for the future. We need to be strategic as to where growth goes and when it happens. As we build up our community and other inner city communities, we need to have a smart growth plan that listens to and takes into consideration the individual needs and interests of each unique community. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and to take into consideration my perspective. I have submitted these 3 amendments to the City Clerk for your consideration.
Super. Thank you very much. And 5 minutes on the button. Thank you for that. All right, Nathan, you are up.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can. Floor is yours.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, and members of administration. My name is Nathan Harlick. I was planning director for the Renfrew Community Association from 2018 to 2019 and the CA rep on the North Hill Plan Working Group. I'm speaking for myself today. I think some people think that the working group sat down, drank a jar of pickle juice, and started drawing on top of people's houses. And that's not true. We had some tough conversations, and we worked our hardest to try to produce the best work we could. I have some thoughts on what I'd do differently, but I'll save that for another time. During introductions of that working group, one member said that they wanted to be able to afford to stay in the neighborhood if their relationship ended. And frankly, I'm still touched that someone started the process so vulnerably. I worry about what delaying or editing the North Hill Plan on the floor of council would do to that person and people with similar concerns. But if there are improvements that can be made, let's make them. If, for example, we need Chris Edwards to join the working group for further heritage revisions, great. Let's do it. I'll be glad to be part of this process until the job is done. Now, yesterday I talked about math. We're spending billions of dollars on the Green Line, which means we need more private investment if we're going to maintain it, hence local area plans. I'm concerned that the North Hill Plan only makes sense if the Green Line crosses the river. So, to put on my dad pants for a minute, I don't know and I don't care who started the fight about Segment 2. Sort it out with the province so North Hill works. As I think I made clear yesterday, I'm a big proponent of missing middle housing. But there's also a strong argument that there are places where missing middle would be underbuilding. And our current land use bylaw makes most missing middle full of stairs and it's physically inaccessible. So, to quote a famous movie, you're going to need a bigger boat. And that's where the taller buildings come into the plan. Diplomatically, it's interesting to look at the maps to see which neighborhoods seem to be following the plan's vision of varied housing options focused around a collection of main streets, activity centers, civic facilities, parks, and open spaces, and which aren't. Now, did we get the plan right? I don't know. I can't predict the future, and I doubt anyone else here can. I can't judge the North Hill Plan in terms of gender, race, or disability. My education is in history. I've learned that every plan fails at some point, and in some way. Von Moltke the Elder is often paraphrased as saying, "No plan survives first contact with the enemy." Eisenhower quoted a statement that he heard a long time ago in the Army. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And Mike Tyson observed, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Because plans inevitably fail, we need to be humble enough to acknowledge that these plans will need to adapt. If updating a plan takes as long as this plan took to make, it will never be able to adapt. For the North Hill Plan to succeed, we need to include adaptation and flexibility through a low-density district that allows a variety of housing options beyond detached houses. As Charles Marone of Strongtowns wrote, projections are not necessary when things are built incrementally with ongoing feedback driving adaptation. Local area plans like North Hill need a low-density district with adaptability, or they'll be obsolete upon approval. They'll be bigger, but no better than the area redevelopment plans they replace. So please ensure that the guidebook has the base level of adaptation beyond R1, so North Hill and other plans can adapt and succeed. Then, let's move on to the renewed land use bylaw. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's been part of this in the past and today.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Harlock. Great to hear from you again. Cami Laird, how the heck are you? Nice to have you on the list today. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Tammy Laird. I am the Executive Director of the Crescent Heights Village Business Improvement Area. On behalf of the business owners of Crescent Heights Village BIA, the Board of Directors would like to offer its support of the North Hill Community's local area plan as presented on March 22nd. Troy Gonzalez and his team consulted extensively with RBIA and made great efforts to include our feedback in earlier versions of the plan to address the future density, walkability, and character that will make Crescent Heights Village a vibrant, pedestrian-friendly shopping and entertainment destination in the years to come. Our businesses have communicated to us time and again the necessity of increased local density as part of the transition of Centre Street from a commuter traffic artery to a true Main Street shopping area. We believe local density, particularly in the residential realm, will reduce the need of parking, will reduce traffic in the surrounding neighborhoods, and will create an overall pedestrian vibrancy essential to the business owner's success. We appreciate the attention paid to the historical significance of the area, as well as to the integration of the Green Line plans for the area, as well as the integration with the Guidebook for Great Communities. This synergy will help make the plan successful in meeting its objectives, as all will be rowing in the proverbial boat in the same direction. We believe the gradual increase in density from 9th to 16th Avenues will allow the community to maintain its natural and historical character while creating opportunities for economic development and mid to high density residential that is essential to the revitalization of the city's core neighborhoods. As always, we are committed to working with the Crescent Heights Community Association to create a balance that works for both residents and business owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laird. Let's go to Isabel Yankovic, please. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
The floor is yours.
My name is Isabel Yankovic, and I would like to thank the mayor, the councillors, and the clerks for their patience during this very long public hearing. I'm a resident of Crescent Heights, and I support the position presented by the Crescent Heights Community Association. The North Hill Community's local area plan is the first local area plan to be passed, and as the prototype, it's very important to have a bylaw that clearly guides residents, builders, and the development authority. The Crescent Heights deserves a local area plan that is as good or better than the ARP it replaces. Every community in this city deserves a good local area plan that fully involves residents and respects the needs of their community. As Mr. Cowell pointed out, the needs of a car-centric community are far different from the communities surrounding the downtown. In developing the 1997 ARP, many volunteers were involved and helped the city assess every lot for suitable development options. And when it was passed, we knew what we were getting, and until the last few years, it has worked well for us. Crescent Heights is a diverse community in housing types, population, incomes, and businesses. Our population is growing, not declining. We welcome everybody, and we have a large Asian population. We've already met the goals of this guidebook and surpassed those of the MDP. I am proud of the wonderful community we have created, and I want to build on that creation, not destroy it. The residents of Crescent Heights have fought City Hall long and hard to accomplish this. What I've heard at POD and at this hearing echoes what we have had to do for the last 45 years. Ms. Swales from Brentwood very eloquently expressed what we have all been trying to tell you for the last 3 days. What is being allowed now is not always in the best interests of the communities, and the limited options offered in the guidebook are not enough to create a workable local area plan. We need a new recipe with new innovative ingredients. Finally, we, the citizens, elected you to do this work and to make decisions on our behalf. I was shocked on Monday to hear how many of you are confused as to what you are passing and the full implications of these bylaws. I'm a retired project manager from a major architectural firm. When our clients didn't like what we were proposed, we went back and redid it. We are your clients, and that's exactly what you need to do. Get rid of the meaningless ads with the flowery language. Get some clear information out to the residents with some meaningful engagement. Tell us what you are doing and explain why, and give us enough time to review the information. Sometimes it's been as short as 2 weeks, and we can't get that information out to our residents. You've heard a lot of people in the last few days, and many are very well informed and know these documents well. Councillors, please take the Mayor's suggestion to take the time to really examine all the information you've heard and to talk further with some of the presenters before you make your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for being here. That takes us to the end of this panel, and I do have a question from Councillor Carra.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank all the presenters, but I'm always touched by the thoughtfulness that Nathan brings to the table. Nathan, you mentioned that you would do things differently having done it this time. What would you do differently having gone through this process the way you did?
Okay. Well, I mean, there are some valid criticisms of the plan. First of all, I would say it's more corridor-centric than I think is wise. Certainly Toronto and Vancouver have tried to put all of their density on main streets and have 2 blocks away a very low level of growth. And the problem with that is that when you have one lot that's worth, I don't know, $10 million because you can build an apartment, and 2 lots away, one that's worth $1 million because you can build a house, and a vacant lot in between, what's that vacant lot worth? Well, whoever owns it is hoping that it's worth closer to the $10 million, and it doesn't actually end up producing the houses that are needed. So I'm worried about what those transitions look like around the bigger streets. But I'll admit those sharp transitions aren't in Renfrew, so I don't want to judge the other neighborhoods too much. And that's where I get to the 6-story, I guess, what, for lack of a better word, I'll call the residential main streets of Renfrew. I can see a case for doing further engagement after the map was released. I guess that would have been in fall of 2019. In a perfect world, perhaps there would be people knocking on doors. I mean, we've had comments about how many people just throw out whatever gets dropped in their mail, or I don't know if it's signs that say this street could become 6 stories or something. But I think that's on the city. I mean, we've got a community association of about 250 members in a neighborhood of 6,500 people. There's only so much that a bunch of volunteers can pull off. And maybe there's an argument those heights should be reduced down to 4 stories so that it becomes 4 floors and corner stores on those streets. But if you do that, would the people who would have lived on the 5th and 6th floors known that they should have shown up today to find out and to speak up for their future home? I don't know. The more I learn about cities, the more I can see everybody's perspective, and I really struggle with that. So as a CA, it was kind of tough to be on the pilot and not know what the exercises would look like. I really appreciated what they looked like, and talking about where the different activity levels were. Here's the busy streets. Here's where we think people will spend more of their time, and then talking about heights. I guess if we had known what those would have looked like, it would have been useful for us as a planning committee, and perhaps with residents as well, to run those exercises a few times and get a better sense of that. So if I might suggest that for other community associations to consider, so that they're walking into that working group with a little more thought on what people think about them. And I guess third, and I've made this suggestion to administration as well, and they've been quite receptive to it, but I think there should be a primer on utilities so that we can talk about that. I'm on the Established Areas Growth and Change Utilities Working Committee, and that was really useful to have some understanding of what electrical setbacks look like and what that means and how power lines affect building, never mind what the pipes under the ground to. So that information could be helpful so that so the working groups can look at what the construction would actually look like and link those together. In general, I would say that when we get to that land use bylaw, I hope we talk seriously about how aesthetic front setbacks and required setbacks around power lines, typically in the back lanes, leave less space for people in between. And perhaps that means we need to reconsider what our front setbacks look like. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, really appreciate your input there. I share your angst about the 6-story corridors. I understand completely why you did it. And I think that they're all fabulous reasons. I think, and I also understand that you do have angst about it. I understand that from listening to the impassioned pleas of your neighbors. I think there is a conversation, and Councillor Farrell talked about it, about sort of turning these into special study areas. So we do have the time to go back and have conversations with neighbors who are now engaged, and I'm definitely supportive of that. And hopefully that'll answer one of your do things differently the next time questions retroactively.
May I add a thought on that?
Yeah.
One of the challenges is that we haven't really sat down to see what those building blocks look like. The working group made it pretty clear that we wanted things with lots of doors along those streets. So maybe that looks sort of like a very Calgary, for lack of a better word, freehold townhouse, brownstone sort of thing. Narrow and tall, that covers 45% of the lot. I don't know. Maybe it looks more like apartments that cover 60% of the lot. I'm not sure. And I think that's part of the uncertainty as well, because the longer we take to debate whether there should be duplexes in every neighborhood, even though they cover as much space as a detached house, the more we push back that big discussion about what the rest of the land use bylaw looks like and what those 6-story blocks look like. And even in the process, 3 months ago, there was an application on 8th Ave based on the North Hill plan. And so the longer we delay, the more time we leave and the more power we leave for developers to shape what that street looks like.
I completely agree with you that what the buildings look like is critical, and trying to integrate all of this is the key, and we need to get there. But in order to get there, we need to take first steps. All right. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate all the time and effort you put into this and the expertise you've developed in town planning through the process.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. That takes us to the end of this panel. Thank you, everyone. I have 5 more names, and then I'll ask if there is anyone else who would like to speak on this item. But we'll go to Paul Bergman. Are you there, sir? How about Tim Holes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll put you on the list. Mark McDonnell, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you. How about Al Barber? Are you there, Al? How about Estelle Ducatel? Estelle? All right, why don't we start with Mr. Holes and Mr. McDonnell, and we'll see if any of the other people come. But Mr. Holes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before we start off, I do have a presentation, and
just give us a moment and we'll get it up.
That'd be great. If we could leave it on the front cover page, that'd be great. Hello?
Yeah, just a moment. We'll just get it up. Hold on.
Hello?
Just be a moment. I'll let you know when we're ready. There we go.
I believe Your Worship, there's somebody else trying to...
is there someone else saying hello? Who's the other person saying hello? Oh, I don't have anyone. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Holes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council members. My name is Tim Holtz, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today at Council. I'm speaking as a citizen of Crescent Heights. I first want to say that I do appreciate the City Administration's hard work, time, and effort in building the new local area plan for the North Hill community, especially while in flight with the City Guidebook. I have been actively involved for over 4 years, starting off the original charrettes to today. The 9 communities under the North Hill Community Plan, forgot to hit my timer, are a set of ecosystems with unique characteristics, socioeconomic diversity, multiple ethnic backgrounds with young families, students, and individuals. The goal of the city is how to introduce these increased density and maintain the balanced diversity for each community. I do support our Crescent Heights Community Association of the position of removing Crescent Heights from the North Hill Community Plan until the amendments discussed today and have been adopted by administration. The city administration needs to recognize the current ecosystem benefits, and I have 3 points I'd like to present to Council today. If we could move to slide 3 of my presentation, that'd be great. I appreciate it. I can't see it, so I don't know if it's there. Are we good to go, Your Worship?
You are indeed. They're very good. When you say go to that slide, they always do. Jordan's excellent at this, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I would like to be specific and use the area of the Crescent Heights Northwest between 12th Avenue to 15th Avenue Northwest, from Center Street to 4th Street for my presentation today. For Council's understanding, from 1st Street to 4th Street Northwest, there are key calming measures that were installed 20 years ago, allowing the neighborhood to introduce a diverse and socioeconomic mix into the area where the kids can play as together on the street safely again. The balance that has worked out originally had identified the first block and half of City Street Northwest would be focused on density concentration, keeping access to the traffic east of the calming measure. This would allow for Center Street B and east side of 1st Street to increase format, accommodating the requirements of densification. The area I'm presenting today has a good stock of affordable housing, offering a mix of smaller older bungalows, row townhouses, rental properties, and single detached heritage homes that allow for all walks of socioeconomic citizens to enjoy each other, a backyard, and where kids can play street hockey. The challenge and ongoing issue I have today that I'd like to raise is start off as a mapping area just over 2 years ago prior to the 2019 PUD hearing. The Community Association and I have raised the PUD community in 2019 and gained support from Councillor Drew Farrow to address the format changes that sees introduction of 6-story building formats along the 1st Street West around the corner of 15th Avenue, impacting several established heritage homes, established canopy, and introducing significant impacts of shadow effects and disregarding several MDP guidelines. I hope, Councillor Farrow, who's listening today, that you have these requests as part of your amendments going forward. In closing, the initial engagements worked out an arrangement to meet these city goals for density increase was agreed upon, and how to preserve some value of the characteristics of the area being presented today. The planning team did a full reversal, ignoring what was accomplished, and then took a directive approach, shutting out the public input. The increased traffic alone and several MDPs being disregarded have irreversible impact in the established ecosystem that has been built over 20 years for startup families and new Canadians. I asked Council to amend the North Hill Community Plan as been requested through both the PUD community decisions and arrangement to reach both the city's needs and restore the 3-story building formats along 1st to 4th Street, preserving the Crescent Heights community. Couple last minute considerations for Council is to address the drainage and surface flooding challenges is to incorporate a minimum of a 35% permeable surface requirements for all lots, reducing impacts on our aging infrastructure. I also believe the city will benefit from leveraging on retail data stats and analytics to be more accurate in predicting changes within the communities, and not rely on lagging indicators misleading planning teams today. With that, I thank Council for your time and open any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scholes. Thanks for being here. Mark McDonald, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the time. First of all, Your Worship, I'd like to say that Caesar salad with no bacon is not vegetarian, as there are anchovies in the dressing.
Oh my gosh, there was a major debate among City Council on this exact issue. And yeah, most agree with you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Mark McDonald, and I'm a resident of Renfrew. And I'd like to say that as controversial as the guidebook is, and thank you, Council, for your patience over 3 days hearing about everybody's objections to it, the North Hill Communities Plan is nothing like what the guidebook describes. For example, the idea is that a resident would not need a car, as they would have a coffee shop, hairdresser, and grocery store within walking distance. In this plan, speaking specifically about Renfrew, a coffee shop is as much as a 29-minute walk away from six-story residents. In this plan, a grocery store is a 25-minute walk away from six-story residents. In this plan, a hairdresser is a 34-minute walk away from six-story residents. So if walking isn't practical, then residents need cars, and this plan doesn't provide for parking or for vehicle transportation of that volume. Now, developers will say that it's not their job to provide these amenities, but that was one of the main selling points we heard of the guidebook yesterday, is that with development comes amenities. Developers will also say that we need new buildings to replace older buildings, but the reality is that in some of the places that they're talking about, these buildings are quite modern and well maintained. For example, on 12th Avenue between Edmonton Trail and 4th Street, there are very modern single-family homes, and the proposal is that they should be replaced with six-story buildings. There has been talk about equity as a driver for the need for increased density, and we've heard some scholarly material yesterday stating that development actually hurts affordability. I'm sympathetic to young people who want to buy a home, and we have a serious affordability problem, but continuing to do the same things, allowing development to continue the same way, will obviously not give us a different result. As I stated earlier, I'm skeptical about the increasing density, decreasing taxes, increasing efficiency, or fighting climate change. Feel free to change my mind on that. Six-story buildings don't belong anywhere in Renfrew except perhaps on 16th Ave. And I don't want this neighborhood to be a stepping stone, which it is becoming right now. The title of the guidebook, which we discussed before and which the plan springs from, was the Guidebook for Great Communities. And I'm finding that it's kind of like when a developer calls it a subdivision deer run. Well, it's because they chase the deers out of there to build the subdivision. This is replacing a great community with something else. So, for example, my neighbors across the street had one child, and when their second child came along, they decided that they needed a bigger house, right? And that's a four residence row house. So that's what I mean by becoming a stepping stone community. And lastly, that I didn't move to my neighborhood hoping that it would change. I moved here because I liked it the way it was. So thank you for the time.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. I'm still worried about this whole anchovy situation, but I'm feeling that I was very wrong in my earlier statement.
Well, I've been to chef school. I have my red seal. I know food quite well.
So now you're appealing to authority. I got it. All right. All right. Thanks very much. Thanks for being here. Mr. Bergman, are you with us? Paul Bergman? How about Al Barber? Are you there, sir?
I am here.
All right. You've got the floor, please. Go ahead.
Oh, I got to get back to my computer. My name's Al Barber, current resident and homeowner in Mount Pleasant. I've already spoken against the guidebook, and I'm doing the same now against the North Hill Local Area Plan. The so-called awareness and engagement has been terrible. I've been involved at a physical open house and online, and my concerns and suggestions did not change the content of this document. For all areas, not necessarily all neighborhoods, to have a variety of housing choice, then protection for some areas currently zoned R1 and R2 is needed. After listening to some other comments yesterday, I'd like to state that I've been a renter, a condo owner, an attached infill owner, and now a detached homeowner. I have lived alone, with roommates, with my partner, and now partner and children. In every case, I moved neighborhoods, although never very far, and this was not a problem. In the future, we may live in a row townhouse as empty nesters or a condo again as we struggle with stairs. I'm not powerful, wealthy, or elitist because I ask you to protect my R1 and R2 neighborhood. We are simply at a phase of life where our family both needs and can afford, or at least make payments on, this type of housing. This is not a class thing. Please, people, put yourselves in our shoes. I suspect a lot of the comments judging R1 and R2 homes and their owners are coming from younger citizens concerned about the cost of home ownership. I get that because I was once in your shoes. But I can tell you that it is achievable. You will find a way, just like all of us before you. Yes, property was cheaper in the past, but salaries were correspondingly lower as well. Should you marry and have kids and a dog someday, you will most likely be drawn towards R1 and R2 housing and put a yard and a garage at the top of your list. When I was young and single, without kids and so on, it was very easy to pack up and leave when something no longer worked for me or undesirable change came along. I could easily leave within months. Then life got busier and much more complicated. We had to consider the needs of ours and the kids, schools, safety, and so on. When we finally landed on a neighborhood, we became more rooted, vested, and invested than ever before. We have worked very hard to get to this point. Many sacrifices were and continue to be made, and it has never been easy. So after all of that struggle and expense, of course, we are going to defend what we have. I want much of my neighborhood to remain R2 and will not be shamed for that. I do not oppose all redevelopment nor all densification. The key, though, is how much density and where. It does belong along 16th Avenue. To a lesser degree, it belongs along 20th Ave, 4th Street and 10th Street. I'm okay with older, small, and run-down bungalows being replaced by 2 attached infills. I like garage suites. I think row townhouses are great along busy corridors, but I am not okay with anything above R2 next to my house. I currently have a nicely landscaped, sunny, private, and quiet backyard. We appreciate our spacious home and outdoor space now, more than ever with COVID lockdowns and everyone working and studying from home at the same time. So yes, I get defensive when this is threatened, and I'm sure most of you would also. I need the guidebook and or North Hill plan to provide protections on my property and my enjoyment of it. I don't like uncertainty and should not have to constantly fight against unwanted development proposals that pop up. Revise these documents in such a way that it is fair to homeowners, existing homeowners, and respectful of investments already made. I will add that my family and I are very conscientious of our carbon footprint. We understand our current housing type is time limited, and we do other things to offset our negative impact. We choose more energy efficient materials and appliances, or chose. We are a one-car household. We ride bikes, walk, and reuse shopping bags, and so on, right? I would also like to touch on affordability because I believe most involved in this conversation falsely believe that increased density in established communities will somehow produce cheaper housing. It will not. New construction is very costly, partly due to increasingly stringent building codes. Infill construction is even more so, easily at 150 to 200% more per square foot. Obviously, land prices are higher in the core, but so are construction costs. It's much different. These costs don't exist in greenfield suburban settings. You have to start with demolition, asbestos abatement. All waste has to be loaded and trucked away. You pay by time for the truck, the excavator to load it, and these operators, and by the weight of heavy things like concrete, lumber, glass, and shingles. The round trips these trucks take a long time because the landfills are always on the outskirts of the city, and there's traffic. So finally, you've got a bare patch of land. You'll still need those excavators, trucks, and operators, this time for excavation of the basement foundation, garage pad, and utility trenches. And dirt is heavy. It also needs to leave site because you have no place to store it. Later, you will need to truck fill back in. More money. In suburbia, they install your gas, sewer, water, and electrical lines underground before they pave the street and pour the sidewalks. These already exist in the inner city, though. So they need to be broken and then repaired, adding more cost. I don't have time to go on and on, but want everyone to understand the tremendous inefficiencies of rebuilding in established areas. And that pushes the price up. It explains why, when I see a developer buy a bungalow on a corner for $600,000, I later see him selling 4-row townhouses for as much as $600,000 a piece. The
Mr.
new
Barber,
townhouse owner,
you're just at time, sir, so I'll ask you to wrap up, please.
Sure. That new townhouse owner may have a new place with a little more interior space, but it's on 1/4 of the land and it's not any more affordable. Please send this back and force more consultation leading to actual changes. It cannot be approved as written today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Estelle Ducatel? All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this
sorry,
item?
I'm here.
Oh, you are here.
Sorry, I am here. Yeah, sorry about that.
Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on the North Hill Plan. I'm Estelle Ducatel from Mount Pleasant. I did make a statement regarding the guidebook and this local area plan in the last section of this hearing. I do want to make sure that my comments regarding the North Hill Plan are also documented under this item because I am strongly opposed to it. Again, I feel like the plan, and I won't repeat everything, sorry, the plan fails to recognize all the redevelopment that has taken place in the last 10 to 20 years, which have made areas like Mount Pleasant vibrant and a wonderful place to live. Instead, the plan intends to deteriorate property values of all of those that built either R1 or R2 type properties by allowing up to R8 type properties directly adjacent to them. This poor planning practice isn't done on new suburban areas, so why allow it here? Over the last few years, RCG rezoning has taken place in our community. And to be clear, I am in support of some of the rezoning that has taken place along busier roads. But before allowing this residential form and size on all the residential streets, I suggest that planning take the advantage of this valuable data set and review how well this style of property has addressed both planning and community needs. This should include parking issues. What are the number of vehicles per household? And confirming that the size of the garage that is built by cramming 4 units onto one lot is actually large enough for the average vehicle that people own. What about a review of the bin placement? I feel like a space must be considered and integrated into the design because 12 bins, there's a lot of them, and they're rather ugly and cumbersome. Affordability. Are they really affordable in comparison to other housing options? A market review is warranted. And how about how the structure size has affected the offsetting properties? Let's seek feedback from the adjacent owners before we can just say that it doesn't impact offsetting properties. When the North Hill Local Growth Plan and Guidebook were presented to the City Standing Policy Committee last year and on March 4th, 2020, they both got through with a long list of amendments as requested by some of the councillors. Included in this long list was item number 20 that I had identified, which was, or that I kind of paid attention to, which was minimum density policies were appropriate, so just to review those. So I sent an email to my councillor's office, Councillor Farrell's office, asking, in quote, is there any chance that item 20 could also apply to modifying the minimum density provisions for residential streets? I was trying to understand, what all this list of amendments might do and how it might change the North Hill Plan, because up until now I really felt like we just weren't getting anywhere in trying to influence it. The answer I got from Drew Farrell's office was that, in quote, well, that could be done, modifying the residential street density, but I am confident the minimums would result in more density, not less. I don't think that it's what you had in mind. Does this answer really suggest that anyone is listening to our concerns about minimum density classification not being appropriate on all residential streets? We already feel that limited scale is too dense, yet to suggest that it would likely go higher was not only maddening, but showed a complete disconnect between planning, Councillor Farrell's agenda, and the residents included in the North Hill Plan that strongly oppose the limited scale form on all residential streets. For those who claim that the guidebook isn't a document to fear, I challenge that there is no opportunity to influence the local area plan when the unfortunate time comes, because the lowest form of density is the limited scale, which will allow up to 8 units on a single lot. So I request that the North Hill Plan be revised to include a lower density area other than the limited scale, i.e. that would have less units, and the protection of recent development against future offsetting development under this plan. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Is there anyone else on the line who would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter, and I'm going to call for our supper break. Council, you know that we have a 6 p.m. Conference call that we do need to be on, so I'm going to call for the break now, but we'll come back at our regular 7:15 so that people will have a little bit of time to grab something around that conference call. All right, so we'll be back. Hearing no objections, we'll be back at 7:15. Thank you.